You asked me if an ordinary person, by studying hard, would get to be able to imagine these things like I imagine. Of course, I was an ordinary person who studied hard. There's no miracle people. It just happens they got interested in this thing and they learned all this stuff. They're just people. There's no talent, a special miracle ability to understand quantum mechanics or a miracle ability to imagine electromagnetic fields that comes without practice and reading and learning and study. So if you say you take an ordinary person who's willing to devote a great deal of time and study and work and thinking and mathematics and time, then he's become a scientist.
The famous technique given by the famous theoretical physicist Richard Feynman, a Nobel Prize winner and nicknamed as Great Explainer. So this technique talks about how you can modify your information, your text, your study in such a way that whatever you learn is there in your mind for long. As Richard Feynman said, he is not uh, an extraordinary person. He is just a simple person like you and me who was disciplined enough, who was hardworking enough and dedicated enough to his work that उन्होंने ये technique निकाली and people like Bill Gates follow him. You might be thinking, why is he known as the great explainer? There are like so many scholars here, so many people who have like earned the title of being a teacher, a very recognized explainer and teacher and all. But this man had this ability to teach complex stuff in such a way कि वो बहुत interesting हो जाता था, simple हो जाता था, and that's why people followed him and this technique got famous. And today we would be talking about this technique. Hello and welcome to IGNOU Those for your IGNOU courses, and let's get on to the video. So the first four steps or the whole four steps of this technique is choose a concept, teach it to another, identify gaps, review and simplify. तो फेमन ने चार टेक्निक्स दी थी. आप एक कॉन्सेप्ट चूज करेंगे, आप एक टॉपिक चूज करेंगे जो आप पढ़ाना चाहते हैं, फिर आप किसी और को पढ़ाओगे, आप देखोगे उसमें इश्यूज क्या है एंड फाइनली उसे रिव्यू करोगे. नाउ the thing about this topic particularly is sorry the this technique particularly is that कि रिचर्ड फेमन का कॉन्सेप्ट ये नहीं है कि आप मार्क्स कैसे बेटर ले पाओ. उसका कॉन्सेप्ट है, उसका थियोरी है उस रिगार्ड में कि आप जो इंफॉर्मेशन है या जो भी कंसेप्ट है उसे आप कितने आराम से, कितने सिंप्लिसिटी से, कितनी सरलता से उसे आप दूसरे बंदे को समझा सकते हो, और कितना छोटा सरल भाषा जितना जो भी आप यूज कर सकते हो उस बंदे को समझ आए कि आप बोल क्या रहे हो. दिस वॉज द आइडिया ऑफ फेमन बिकॉज he himself had this charisma of teaching things in such a way, like sorry not charisma but yeah, the style of teaching in such a way that चीजें इतने आराम से समझ आ जाती थी बहुत सिंपल तरीके से. So as I said, there are four steps to this: choose a concept, teach it to another, identify gaps and review and simplify. So the first step is pick a concept. Now why picking a proper concept is important? First, take those concepts which you have prepared well with, because जो बाकी तीन steps है, it is dependent on this initial step. तो अगर आपने एक ऐसा टॉपिक लिया जो आपको ही नहीं पता ढंग से, तो आप दूसरों को कैसे समझा पाओगे? या आपने एक बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स टॉपिक लिया जो मे बी इतने आराम से ना समझ आए, जो मे बी कंसाइज ही ना कर पाओ आप, बिकॉज देर आर सो मेनी लेयर्स टू इट. So rather than picking a very elaborate topic or a very abstract topic, take a very objective one. Like suppose if you are teaching constitution, आपने बोला चलो मैं आज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पढ़ना चाहती हूँ, तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की जगह आप मे बी फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज ले लीजिए. हमने फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज पे हमारा कॉन्सेप्ट है. अब उस छोटे टॉपिक को आप आगे स्टेप्स में लेके जाएंगे. So that is why choosing a correct topic is important. Choosing an interesting topic is important because आप दूसरे बंदे को भी explain कर रहे हैं. Now it is up to you if you are working with a very थोड़ा theoretical boring सा हो रहा है, so you have to make it in a very interesting manner ताकि आगे वाला आपको सुने. The second thing is teach it to yourself or someone else, preferably a toddler. नहीं तो आप अपने आप को समझाइए. अगर आप अपने आप को समझाते हैं, आई वुड प्रेफर कि आप अपने आप को ना समझाएं, किसी को किसी और को पहले समझाएं, बिकॉज व्हेन वी आर टीचिंग आवरसेल्व्स वी हैव दिस टेंडेंसी ऑफ अज्यूमिंग अच्छा ये तो आता है मेरे दिमाग में है, अच्छा ये वैसा है वैसा है. We tend to ignore and intentionally skip forward to different parts to cover up the concept and then go on to the other, because when we are learning what we do is कि हम surface reading करते हैं या फिर हमारे end goal होता है इसे फटाफट खत्म करना. So I would prefer if you teach it to someone else, and especially a child. Why a child? Because children have toddlers specifically, उनकी अटेंशन स्पैन कम होती है, उन्हें बिठाना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. सो इट इज योर चैलेंज दैट यू हैव टू मेक फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज इंटरेस्टिंग सो दैट वो बच्चा सुने आपको. और आपको उसे ऐसे बताना पड़ेगा कि एक 4-5 साल के बच्चे को या एक 6 साल के बच्चे को वो चीज समझ आ जाए. सो दिस इज द चैलेंज एंड दिस इज योर होल स्टेप टू. Okay, if you don't have a toddler, you can discuss it with your, so you can explain it to your sibling, your spouse, or your grandparents, parents, etc. Now, what are the benefits of teaching someone? First thing is that you see the concept from a very different perspective. Your goal changes from finishing the topic to explaining and teaching someone that topic. तो आप क्या इंश्योर करोगे कि वो उस बंदे को ए टू जेड सब पता चले उस बारे में. लाइक व्हाट आई एम डूइंग राइट नाउ इज आई एम लर्निंग ऑल द टॉपिक्स दैट वी हैव बीन डिस्कसिंग एंड टेलिंग इट टू यू. सो माय goal is not to finish the whole session essay. My goal is to tell you what exactly this topic is. So first, your goal changes, your priority changes. Second is that the responses that you get from them, you realize maybe आपसे वो response ना आया because you get different perspective of the same concept and you are able to understand your flaws as well. इसलिए teaching someone is important. Like अब बचपन में बहुत लोगों ने करा होगा, अपनी dolls को या stuffed toys को बिठा के पढ़ाया. This is a way of learning as well, and it is related to this technique. Now we have identify the gaps. Okay, so we chose a topic, we explained it to a child or anyone, and अब हम देखेंगे कि जो भी हमने उसे समझाया है कि क्या उसे वो समझ आया. So you can either ask कि अच्छा आपको समझ आया, अच्छा इसका आंसर क्या था, are you clear on that, is the explanation too long, or even with the body language, when you're explaining it to someone, the best part is that you are able to understand their body language. तो आप बॉडी लैंग्वेज से पता कर सकते हो कि दैट पर्सन इज नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन दैट टॉपिक. नाउ यू नो यू हैवंट taught the topic well, or it is not interesting enough to make them sit and listen. So you can modify your concept in such a way. You can make it concise, you can make it short, make your language easy, or maybe take examples like fundamental duty समझा रहे हो तो you can take up cases या you can take up examples. अगर आप बच्चों को समझा रहे हो तो बहुत animated examples use कर सकते हो. In this way अब वो जो इंटरेस्ट बढ़ता रहता है. इस तरीके से आपको पता चलेगा कि आपकी गलतियां कहाँ है. एंड फाइनली जब आपको पता चल जाए कि आपकी गलतियां कहाँ है, यू वुड ट्राई टू इनकॉर्पोरेट इट अगेन एंड आप किसी दूसरे बंदे के पास जाओ एंड फिर एक और बार ट्राई करो. So you're going back to your first step, that is first, second, third. You again chose a concept, you again explained it, and then you again checked key whether it has flaws or not. This is called reviewing. When finally you have the clarity कि अच्छा उस बच्चे को या उस इंसान को वो समझ आ गया है, you have mastered your concept. So it might sound very cumbersome or very time consuming, but believe me, जब आप ये बहुत बार करते रहते हैं, when you go back to first, second, third step again and again, you are able to minimize or like prevent mistakes from happening. Like गलतियां कम होगी आपसे अगर आप किसी और को एक्सप्लेन करके बता रहे हैं एंड यू आर गेटिंग बैक रिस्पॉन्सेज एज वेल. तो रिव्यू करिए जरूर. रिव्यू जब आप करेंगे आपको एक क्लैरिटी मिल जाएगी, आपके दिमाग में बात बैठेगी और बिल्कुल सिंपल भाषा में आपको टॉपिक समझ आ जाएंगे. सो इफ यू आर स्टडीइंग समथिंग लाइक टॉर्ट लॉ और फॉर क्रिमिनल लॉ फॉर दैट एग्जांपल, आप किसी को और समझाओगे तो आपको वो सारी चीजें बहुत कंसाइज कंसाइज तरीके से, सिंपल तरीके से समझ आने लग जाएंगे. दिस इज द बेनिफिट ऑफ स्टेप 4 एंड ऑल द अदर स्टेप्स. So I would summarize it once more. First, what you do is choose a concept. Second, explain that concept to a toddler or someone else, your maybe family, friends, or anyone else. Then you identify whether the explanation was like short, concise, and simple, or whether was it too elaborative. If it's too elaborative, you would go back to step 1, check out the concept again, read the concept, अगेन यू हैव टू एक्सप्लेन इट टू दैट पर्सन एंड देन आप दोबारा देखोगे कि गलतियां हुई है या नहीं. इस तरीके से आप फाइनली जब स्टेप 4 पे पहुंचोगे, दैट इज योर रिव्यू एंड रिव्यू स्टेप, तो तब आपको पता चल जाएगा कि आपको वो चीजें आती है, यू आर क्लियर विद इट एंड यू हैव मास्टर्ड दैट टॉपिक इन अ वेरी सिंपल मैनर. सो आपने कॉम्प्लेक्स चीज को सिंपल कर दिया एंड दैट इज व्हाट फेमन टेक्निक इज अबाउट. आई नो इट साउंड्स डिफिकल्ट बट बिलीव मी, आप जब करने लग जाओगे मजा आएगा बिकॉज यू आर गेटिंग रिस्पॉन्सेज फ्रॉम समवन. ऑल द अदर स्टडी पैटर्न्स हैड अ वेरी one sided kind of techniques, like even if you're telling it to someone else, but explaining it as a teacher perspective is very different from telling it to different people. So this particular technique helps you to get responses अच्छे से, because आप एक student teacher relationship में आ रहे हो when you're teaching them in the step 2. तो आपका उसका body language, आपके उनके questions exactly, like if that person is asking you a question, you would be like, oh, मैंने इसके बारे में तो सोचा नहीं. Oh, I haven't studied that topic from that perspective. This way you gain perspective and questions as well. So it is a very good technique given by such a renowned person. तो please 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 इसे अपने study pattern में incorporate करिए. अगर आपको लगता है कि इतना टाइम नहीं है, तो छोटे छोटे टॉपिक्स जो आपने ऑलरेडी कर रखे हैं उससे शुरू करिए एंड देखिए कि ये कैसे आपको हेल्प करेगा. अदरवाइज इफ यू फील कि आपको कुछ समझ ना आ रहा हो, या आप अभी सेलेक्ट क्या करने हैं कोर्सेज, बिकॉज अभी कोर्सेज सॉरी द एडमिशन फॉर्म्स आर open and all, you can contact on this number given on the screen, 759-493-9297. We provide with IGNOU courses like live recorded classes, value added notes, assignments, mentorship programs as well. So अपने हमारे कमेंट सेक्शन में प्लीज डालेगा कि आपको कैसा लगा ये टेक्निक, whether it helped you or not, क्या आपको दिक्कतें आ रही हैं, and we would be glad to respond. Do like, share and subscribe the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.
Now, the moon is 60 times as far away from the Earth's center than we are. We're 4,000 miles away from the center, and the moon is 240,000 miles away from the center. So if the law of inverse square is right, an object at the Earth's surface should fall in 1 second by 1/20th of an inch times 3,600, being the square of 60, because the force has been weakened by 60 times 60 for the inverse square law in getting out there to the moon. And if you multiply a 20th of an inch by 3,600, you get about 16 feet. And lo, it is known already from Galileo's measurements that things fell in 1 second on the Earth's surface by 16 feet. So this meant, you see, that he was on the right track. There was no going back now. Because a new fact that was completely independent previously, which is the period of the moon's orbit and its distance from the Earth, was connected to another fact, which is how long it takes something to fall in 1 second. So this was a dramatic test that everything's all right. Further, he had a lot of other predictions. He was able to calculate what the shape of the orbit should be if the law were the inverse square, and found indeed that it was an ellipse. So he got 3 for 2, as it were. In addition, a number of new phenomena had their obvious explanations. One was the tides. The tides were due to the pull of the moon on the Earth. This had sometimes been thought of before, with the difficulty that if it's the pull of the moon on the Earth being here, the water's being pulled up to the moon, then there would only be one tide a day where that bump of water is under the moon. But actually, you know, there are tides every 12 hours roughly, and that's 2 tides a day. But there was also another school of thought that had a different conclusion. Their theory was that it was the Earth that was pulled by the moon away from the water. So actually Newton was the first one to realize what actually was going on, that the force of the moon on the Earth and on the water is the same at the same distance, and that the water here is closer to the moon and the water here is further from the moon than the Earth, than the rigid Earth, so that the water is pulled more toward the moon here, and here is less toward the moon than the Earth, so that it's a combination of those 2 pictures that makes a double tide. Actually, the Earth does the same trick as the moon. It goes around a circle, really. I mean, the force of the moon on the Earth is balanced, but by what? By the fact that just like the moon goes in a circle to balance the Earth's force, the Earth is also going in a circle Actually, the center of the circle is somewhere inside the Earth. It's also going in a circle to balance the moon. So the two of them go around a common center here. And if you wish, this water is thrown off by centrifugal force more than the Earth is, and this water is attracted more than the average of the Earth. At any rate, the tides were then explained, and the fact that there were 2 a day. A lot of other things became quite clear. Why the Earth is round, because everything gets pulled in. And why it isn't round, because it's spinning so that the outside gets thrown out a little bit and it balances. And why the sun and moon are round, and so on. Now, as the science developed and measurements were made ever more accurately, the tests of Newton's law became much more stringent. And the first careful tests involved the moons of Jupiter. By careful observations of the way they went around over a long period of time, one could be very careful to check that everything was according to Newton. And turned out not to be the case. The moons of Jupiter appeared to be first get sometimes to 8 minutes ahead of time and sometimes 8 minutes behind schedule, where schedule is the calculated values according to Newton's laws. It was noticed that they were ahead of schedule when they were close, when Jupiter was close to the Earth, and behind schedule when it was far away, a rather odd circumstance. And Mr. Römer, having confidence in the law of gravitation, came to an interesting conclusion, that it takes light some time to travel from the moons to the Earth, and that what we're looking at when we see the moons are not how they are now, but how they were the time ago that it took the light to get here. Now, when Jupiter's near us, it takes less time for the light to come, and when Jupiter's further, it takes longer time, so he had to correct the observations for the differences in time, and by the fact that they were this much too early or that much too late, was able to determine the velocity of light. This was the first demonstration that light was not an instantaneously propagating material. I bring this particular matter to your attention because it illustrates something. That when a law is right, it can be used to find another one. That by having confidence in this law, if something is the matter, it suggests perhaps some other phenomenon. And if we had not known the law of gravitation, we would have taken much longer to find the speed of light, because we would not have known what to expect of Jupiter's satellites. This process has developed into an avalanche of discoveries. Each new discovery permits the tools for much more discovery, and this is the beginning of that avalanche, which has gone on now for 400 years in a continuous process, and we're still avalanching along at high speed at this time.